Today we're here in sunny Ames, Iowa, doing some traction testing. We have a 1,000-foot track here, and we're going the full 1,000 feet and just measuring tractive efficiency as a result of slip, as a result of the air pressure inside the tire. We're looking at fuel efficiency, we're looking at footprint size, all those different things combined for about 6 different test conditions on the tractor behind me. The depth has been identical for each pass, the speed has been identical for each pass. We have a 38-foot cultivator on the back of this tractor that's really making it work. We have 4 standard radials, ours being one of those versus some market leaders. All 4 standard radials are running at the same pressure. The difference between a standard radial and a VF tire, which is what's behind me, is the air pressure required to do the same work. So a standard radial has a specific air pressure. A VF tire can carry that exact same load with 40% less air pressure. What that does is it really lengthens out your footprint. It reduces your soil compaction because now you're spreading that weight over a larger area, and it increases your traction. The primary reason we wanted to incorporate CTIS into this whole testing gambit is because we really believe that CTIS is the only true way to maximize a tire's benefit and have that tire perform just like we designed it to perform. So for example, if we're setting the air pressure for this tractor back here, the tractor runs about 30 miles an hour. So we would set the tire pressure for worst case scenario, which would be 30 miles an hour with an implement. And you would have to run that same pressure in the field unless you were to change the pressure at the end of the rows or something like that, which nobody really does. With CTIS, you can make all those changes in the cab with a push of a button. So it's all incorporated on the screen with this AgriBrink system. So we're able to actually adjust the pressure down to where it would be adjusted for field speed, which may be 4, 6, 8 miles an hour instead of having it overinflated to accommodate for roading. So we're about to do our last run, which is CTIS plus VF. We're really excited to kind of get our heads together between myself, our field engineering group, and Jake from AgriBrink and present you the results. We finished up all our testing with VF tires, CTIS-enabled tires, standard radials, and me and Aaron have had a chance to sit down and kind of go over the results, so we want to discuss that now. So Aaron, what you got?
Yeah, so the first one that really stood out to us is our Tractive index. And I want to start with a caveat that we did testing conditions for our VF tires in both a standard VF inflation pressure as well as a CTIS-enabled inflation pressure, which we would make a recommendation for someone running CTIS. So the standard inflation pressure, which I would have given for our 7R, which we tested on, would have been 12 PSI on the rear tires. And for the CTIS, we did 9 PSI to give it a little bit of added benefit. It's operating at a slower speed. And then on the road, we also bumped up the inflation pressure to really see the difference. So if you're able to inflate before you get on the road, what kind of benefits are you going to get in both your on-road fuel efficiency and your stability, stuff like that. So we'll report it both. When I mentioned that it's a CTIS, it's at those inflation pressures, and the VF would be at our standard, what I would recommend to anybody who's just running a VF tire on their tractor. So the first one which we want to go over and stood out to us is the Tractive index. So our CTIS is our 100-point benchmark, and the VF 354 performed at a 58. So that sounds like a huge discrepancy, but really it just highlights the effectiveness of a low inflation pressure in the field operated with CTIS. So our 354 was at a 58, and the remaining radials were 53, 51, and 50. So an 8% difference between our radial, and then when you bring that VF into a CTIS condition, you get a huge bump in performance in our Tractive index.
So with CTIS being that big of a bump, what causes that? Because that's a huge difference.
It really has to do with the lower inflation pressure. That lower inflation pressure gives you a greater surface area onto the ground, contact area of the tire. That means more lugs digging into the soil, and it just really it showcased that, you know, that greater surface area on the ground is translating directly to tractive performance. The next criteria we wanted to point out was a compaction at a 12-inch depth. Now this was done on our 7 Series tractor. There's going to be a big difference when you're working with much heavier machinery. But what we found at our 12-inch depth on our embedded soil sensors is that our VF CTIS and the standard VF pressures were at our 100-point benchmark. They were nearly identical compaction at the base of the roots where that root growth really shines. To compare that to our standard radials, which we did, was 60 and 56. So we had almost a 40% less compaction out of our VF and CTIS conditions than you would with the standard radial.
So with a tractor like this, I mean, there's not a lot of weight, like you mentioned. Like the CTIS version versus VF, when it comes to compaction, was shown almost identical. But I think where we see the biggest benefits and the biggest differences in CTIS and then VF tires, especially versus standard radial, are things like sprayers, which are incredibly heavy. You're at 13, 14,000 pounds a corner, and the difference in air pressure could be 20, 25, 30 PSI. Manure tankers is another one. Anything with a very large air chamber, like 35-532 is a huge air chamber. If you can vary that from 45 PSI down to 15, you'll see massive differences in the actual compaction benefit. So I think that's really where it shines. I think our tractor here did great for all the testing we did, but it's just not quite enough weight to really give us a good picture of compaction.
You know, we did get a 40% lower compaction out of our VF versus a standard radial. So it is showing, but the difference between a 9 and 12 PSI between our VF and CTIS really didn't accentuate, you know, the way you would expect out of something like a sprayer or a manure tanker.
All right, so how about fuel efficiency?
So we did fuel efficiency on the road, like we were saying. What we want to point out here is that the CTIS was at an overinflated condition, we would consider it, but for road stability and comfort and overall, you know, performance on the road, this was an ideal situation. This is how you would want to utilize your CTIS system. So the CTIS on the road was at 30 PSI. We maintained our 12 PSI VF on the road. So the results of that are that the CTIS was our 100-point benchmark. And then we had our VF mixed in right up with all the other standard radials. So you didn't see a significant drop in any kind of performance of fuel efficiency. We were at an 80, the others were at 86, 75, 87. So there was a bit of loss here, but that's the concession that you're going to make when you go to a VF without having a CTIS inflation system installed, because you don't have that access. No one's going to come on and inflate their tires just to take it on the road unless you're really adamant about your inflation pressure. So that's a concession that you're going to make. With that bigger footprint, lower inflation pressure, you're going to have more contact area, more rolling resistance, and that's going to consume more fuel. But with CTIS, the VF performed. We got to squeeze out the extra performance out of our VF technology. And so we really saw the benefits shine right there.
So at the end of the day, with the testing we saw, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the VF performed dramatically better than a standard radial. So I think that way, if you don't change anything else on your operation, you can change that. You can go to a VF tire, they use the same wheels 9 times out of 10 as a standard radial tire, and you get dramatic benefits from what we saw in the field. If you have the option, a CTIS system paired with a VF tire is the absolute perfect solution. I mean, it is the only way possible for us to get that tire to work exactly how we designed it to work all the time. So I think the data backs that up. I think CTIS is by far the pinnacle when it comes to performance. Then VF after that, then you have standard radial. So there's options out there to help your tractor perform better. I think we've proven that, but if you can do VF CTIS, that's the way to go. And I don't think any of this testing could have been done the way we wanted to do it without a CTIS system and a partnership like we have with AgriBrink. Their system's fantastic. We use their tractor, we use their field, we use their tires, their system, everything. It allowed us to be a lot faster in changing pressures in the field and kind of prove the whole system. I think the coolest thing about the AgriBrink system is its speed. So nobody's got time to sit at the end of a field and air up tires, air down tires if it takes 10, 15 minutes. It doesn't take that long. With the AgriBrink system, you can deflate in 60 to 90 seconds. So by the time you get to the field, you fold out your implement, you could already be moving your air pressures and be ready to go without any delay. And special thanks to Aaron and his team too, because without their precision and experience with this test, it never would have went the way it did. I mean, you wouldn't believe how many variables there are to play with when doing a test in a field when you're interacting with the soil. There's so many things that you just can't prepare for, and him and his team pulled it off excellently.
And a special thank you to James, you know, our product manager at Ag. We had talked about an event like this and doing some internal testing, and it's great to have the opportunity to truly showcase in a way that we can provide some real-world application data that's relevant.
We think we have some of the best tires on the market, and we really wanted to get out there and prove it. I think that's what we're able to do. To learn more about AgriBrink, check out their website. To learn more about Alliance Tires, check out our website or go see your local dealer. If you want to learn even more, check out our standard radial comparison as well. And if you have any suggestions about what you want to see us test next, just put it in the comments.